Hello there, I'm Kim at Olive City Homestead, and in today's video I'm doing something quite a bit different than usual, but I'm really looking forward to it, and that is I'm talking about 3 great books that helped me tremendously in my garden, and I think they'll help you too if you haven't ever heard of them yet. So first of all, I want to send a big thanks to Sarah over at the Big Blue House Homestead for asking me to join in on this 3-book collaboration. I do love reading, and I do love investigating and researching all of my interests, of which there are many. So it was very difficult to narrow down my selection to just 3 books. But these 3 books are fantastic. They just are full of colorful photographs and images and great descriptions and advice. And they're just unique, each of them in their own way, offering interesting information that I really haven't found anywhere else, at least not in the scope and depth that I found in these books. And I'd also say they are the books that over the last couple of years I find myself returning to and spending a lot of time in, checking with, finding new things, going back and rediscovering something I had skimmed over the first time, and there's just so much material in them that is so good. Of course, I love YouTube, I love blogs, I love websites and Google search and all of these places we can go to find information. I really do. I love video and I love the written word online, but there is something different about a physical book that I must say I do love. I think that a variety is good. I think we get a lot of input from a lot of different sources, different people, different modes of learning, and that's all good for us. It goes in and it all intermingles, and we come out the better for it on the other end, at least if we're selective with, where we're going for our information. And so, without further ado, let me introduce you to these 3 fabulous books. So first up, we have Growing Your Own Tea Garden, The Guide to Growing and Harvesting Flavorful Teas in Your Backyard by Jody Helmar. Now this was published in 2019 and it is a wonderful book. I am enjoying it so much and I've gotten so many great ideas from it. So the book begins with a few pages about the history of tea. It also talks about the Camellia sinensis tea plant, which is the plant that all the teas come from. In fact, this is the very plant that I recently started growing myself, the Camellia sinensis. And then it tells you how the different teas, white tea and green tea and black tea, are all made from this one plant. However, the bulk of this book, 75 colorful pages, is all about the plants you can grow to make your own teas. Now, the author covers 75 different plants, and the book is full of colorful photos and great tips on growing these plants, on harvesting them, on preserving them, and on brewing them into tea in different ways. And those 75 plants she divides into categories. So there are 32 that use the leaves to make tea. There are 15 that focus on using flowers for making your tea, such as milk thistle and purple passion flower. There are 7 teas made with fruits. Have you ever had persimmon tea? And there are 6 plants where the root is used to make the tea, such as chicory, which I found growing wild here on my property, so I'm eager to try out this plant in a tea. So guys, I waited till 5 p.m. and it is, a shady spot I found. However, it's still 108 out here, and even with the breeze, it is a bit stifling. Still, I want you to hear these book recommendations. So let me tell you just a little bit more about this book by Jody Helmar. It's not just a reference book. I do have other reference books that talk about various plants you can use for teas, but this one's different. One of the things I really like about her book is that she gives actual tea garden designs, as in she has 9 different layouts that are themed. So she has like a sleepy time tea garden, and she has a hangover tea garden, and she has a headache tea garden, She has 9 different ones for different purposes you might want them for. And I find that really cool. Plus, she gives a layout of how you might arrange the plants in a geometric or some sort of style in your overall garden. I like that too. I might not do it exactly the way she does, but it gives me some inspiration, gets me thinking about maybe something I had never considered before. And then, like a lot of authors, she does give some recipes at the back of her book using some of these plants. But what's different about her is she also gives a recipe for every single plant right in the double page spread for that plant, and she gives tips specific to that plant on how to brew it, because some of them are best brewed cold in the fridge overnight, others do better with a long steep time, some less so, and she gives you all of that about every single plant, and I really appreciated that. So I highly recommend that if you're at all interested in growing your own plants for tea, or if you just love tea, that you get this book, Growing Your Own Tea Garden by Jody Helmer. Okay, now this second book I'm super excited to tell you about because it is right up my alley. And I think it might be something a lot of you like too. It's called Grow Something Different to Eat. Weird and Wonderful Heirloom Fruits and Vegetables for Your Garden. It's by Matthew Biggs, and I love this book. He does have a few pages at the beginning of basic growing tips for those who are new to gardening completely. And he has a few pages where he divides some of the plants that he covers into categories such as shade-loving plants or drought-resistant plants. I think he has one for plants that like soggy areas, stuff like that. But the great majority of his book, over 190 pages, is devoted to plants. Plants that you may never have heard of. I know I had not heard of a lot of them. He covers 58 plants, and you might not think that's a lot. But when you start looking at them and reading about them, it is a lot. It's a lot when you look around your garden and you say, oh, where are all these plants? I need to get my hands on some of these. So he covers 5 fruiting vegetables, 7 salad vegetables, 8 leafy vegetables, 12 roots, bulbs, or shoots, 5 grains and seeds, 10 herbs and spices, and 11 fruits. Now, I think that's quite a variety. It gives interesting things for almost any gardener. No matter what your passion might be or what your newest interest is, it's probably going to have a category in this book. Now let me show you a little of the book. It is a DK reference book, and at first when I saw that on the cover, it put me off a little. Not because I don't like DK. My kids growing up had tons of DK books, and I do love them for what they are. But I thought it would be drier than it turned out to be. I thought it would be more impersonal, I guess. And it's not at all. Come take a look. So here it is, Grow Something Different to Eat. Now, on page 80, we have one of the leafy greens that I want to try. This is callaloo, and as you can see, it's a variety of amaranth. And it says it gets its name from amaranthus plants that are grown for their leaves and the Caribbean side dish that's cooked with these leaves. Well, I grow amaranth. Why have I never heard of callaloo? I'm going to learn all about it in this book because not only does it give for every single plant a quick guide that covers how to sow, when to sow, temperatures, light needs, water needs, and how to harvest, but it also gives cooking tips. Well, here is another plant I'm definitely going to search for and start growing, the earth chestnut. Scientific name, Bunium bobocastanum. So this is a tubular plant, and apparently it is fantastic. You not only can eat the cooked tubers, which taste similar to chestnut, but the raw leaves supposedly are like parsley and the seeds like a smoky version of cumin. Well, that's enough to tempt me. How about you? All right, here is another I am definitely going to be experimenting with. Asparagus peas. Lotus tetragonalobus. Apparently that second name, tetragonalobus, means with 4 wings, And it refers to the arrangement of side fins on the pods. When cut, they look like little stars. They also have gorgeous crimson flowers. And when nibbled on, the pods are thought to taste like asparagus. Okay, I'm growing this one. Are you? Now, I told you that the book covered 58 different plants, and so I looked through the list because I was curious how many of these had I even heard of before, let alone grown. So it turned out that of the 58, I've heard or read of 16 of them. That meant, what, 42 I had never even heard of before. And I'd only grown 6, and 2 of those I just grew as ornamentals. I had not known that you could eat them. So I just love this book because I love learning new things. And although I know there's thousands and probably millions of flowering plants that I've never heard of and certainly never grown, I really didn't think there were that many edible plants that I'd never heard of. So yeah, that was a lesson for me, a good one. And I'm glad that there are so many I've never heard of or grown because, hey, that gives me a lot to do in the future, a lot to look forward to, a lot of new things to try and have fun with. So some of those plants that I'd heard of and did know that you could eat, but I'd never grown them myself, this book has given me the confidence to think, yeah, I could do that. I'm going to start growing and using in my cooking chia seeds and sesame seeds. So I encourage you, go get this book. There will be many things in it you will definitely want to try out. So the third and final book I'm going to talk about today is by an author you're probably familiar with, Carol Klein. And this book is called Grow Your Own Garden, How to Propagate All Your Own Plants. And wow, what a message. What a revelation. No more having to buy starts. No more having to start seeds. Yes, you can do those things, and there's nothing wrong with doing those things. But my goal is to have a ton of perennial plants and a ton of plants that I can continue starting year after year via cuttings and layerings and all these other ways that Carol has shown me in this book. Reading this book really was an eye-opener for me. It's something I'm really grateful I have now to learn from. So Carol Klein, Grow Your Own Garden, How to Propagate All Your Own Plants. So here's the cover of this book. And of course most gardeners are quite familiar with Carol Klein since she does so many great books and does the Gardener's World show with Monty Don and so many other reasons to know her. She's like the gardening guru. But this book has really inspired me and motivated me to do things I've never ever considered doing before. For someone who always considered herself to have a truly black thumb, because I always killed houseplants whenever someone was foolish enough to give me one, I never thought I'd see the day when I would think that I would even attempt some, if not many, of the projects she has in this book. She makes it all seem so simple, so doable. And I think part of it is the fact that there's so many step-by-step pictures. I think part of it is the great writing style. I think part of it is her attitude toward gardening and life comes through in the book, and it's very approachable and very encouraging. There's just everything you wanted to know in this book about every kind of plant. It truly is how to propagate all your own plants. And, you know, I can't say that's my goal because I don't think I'll ever actually propagate all my own plants, but I do want to propagate a lot of plants, and I would like to come away with the experience and the confidence of knowing I could if I wanted to. I could propagate them all if I wanted to. And, you know, the experimenting I've already started doing has been so much fun and so worthwhile. So anyway, I just highly recommend this book as something that you will use throughout your entire life as long as you continue gardening at all. So guys, I hope you found at least one of those books, perhaps all of them, interesting, and maybe you're going to go out and find them yourselves. You can look in the libraries, you can go on the used book sites, or you can go to Amazon and get one. I love owning them myself and building myself a very useful and motivating gardening library, and I highly encourage others to do so too. So now I'm going to tag two of my favorite YouTube gardeners to do this challenge as well. Helen over at Bristol Veggie Beds over in the UK, and Nicole at Nicole Smith Gardening over in Texas. I'd love to hear from you two ladies. You both have great channels. I love watching your garden tours and hearing about what you're doing. I think YouTube is great for that, hearing from gardeners all over the world and who have different gardening styles and different gardening expertise. And I just love both your attitudes toward gardening. You're such a joy to watch, and I encourage everyone to go visit your channels. The links for their channels will be in the description below. And Helen and Nicole, the challenge simply is to share 3 books that have really influenced you or been of great interest and use to you in your gardening life. So if you would like to play along, go ahead and make a video about those 3 books and share with us, and then tag 2 of your gardening YouTube friends. So I hope everyone's enjoyed today. I know I have enjoyed sharing these books, and the only problem is there are so many other books I would have liked to have shared, and so I may just start once a month or so often sharing another book or 2 with my followers, since there are so many great books out there to help us and encourage us along the way in our gardening journeys. So thanks for joining me today, and I will see you next time. Just remember, you can create the garden and the life that you want. So don't let anyone ever tell you otherwise. Have a great week, everyone.